Hey guys, welcome back to Storytime with Mr. Isaiah. We are reading Sink or Swim, and we're starting chapter 21 today. If you are not caught up with us, then you need to go back and watch the previous videos so you can get up to date. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe, click the notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Alright, chapter 21. We were the Caboose, the last ship in the convoy, charged with protecting against any U-boat attacks from the rear. It was an impossible job with so many ships and so much ocean and so few of us PCs and corvettes, and even with the two destroyers, especially as we hit a storm almost as soon as we left port that spread out the convoy over miles and reduced visibility to just about zero. For 2 days, we sailed into a gale force wind so strong that our PC literally made no headway at all. Radio contact was limited, but from what we could tell, the cargo ships were able to move forward, though slowly, along with the destroyers. The PCs and corvettes, light as we were, could have to play catch up once the wind died down. Except when the wind died, we were hit with an early snow of all things, temperatures dropping so low that ice formed everywhere on the ship. Somebody said the deck was slick enough that you could ice skate on it, though with the still rough ocean bouncing us around, you'd ice skate right off the side and turn into a human ice cube as soon as you hit the water. About the only members of the crew allowed topside were the officers on the bridge and the navigators. It was just too dangerous for the rest of us, and we had to figure it was too dangerous for the U-boats to surface or even to stay near the surface for very long. So at least that wasn't a problem for the moment. That was what we thought anyway, until the fourth day out, on a day that should have been safe, our convoy was rocked by two explosions, one right after the other. The call went out to general quarters and we scrambled, carefully because of the ice, to our battle stations. There didn't seem to be any way I could climb up to the crow's nest, so I was in the sonar room and blind to what was going on outside. But I could feel it when the PC's engines heated up and we lurched forward in search of the U-boats responsible for the attack, and the ships that had just been hit, and hopefully any survivors. I wasn't in the sonar room long. There was already an operator in there, and I was just the backup because they needed help tying off survivor nets on the side of the ship. So we'd be ready in case there were survivors who could climb aboard under their own power, and fewer we'd have to lift off of lifeboats. My fingers froze as soon as I got out on deck. My face froze. Everything froze. Guys were slapping themselves to keep some feeling in their faces, clapping their hands to keep some feeling in their fingers as they loaded the guns and prepared the detonators and the depth charges. And as we tied off survivor nets and flung them down the side of the ship, we inched our way back on the frozen deck, holding tight onto the safety lines to keep from slipping and to keep from getting tossed over. The PC was pounded by waves as we gave chase to a U-boat we couldn't see in a desperate push to get it there before they could fix their sights on another ship and take that one out too. It was a good thing the storm had pushed the ships in the convoy out of information, making it harder for the Wolfpack to find their next target. Prepare to fire depth chargers, the order blasted out over the squawk box. The sonar must have honed in on a U-boat, and we must have been getting close. I braced myself. We all did. When the order came to launch, and then we held our breath and counted as the depth charges were flung forward and to the starboard, then sank. 1001, 1002, 1003. The explosions lifted our boat out of the water and then slammed it back down hard. A couple of guys fell and slid down the icy deck until somebody else caught them and pulled them back to safety. No debris came up, and no oil slick, no evidence that we'd scored, or hit on the U-boat. I thought we'd turn in the direction of the ships that had gotten hit. The storm had lightened up enough and visibility had increased through what was now just a light snow, so we could see the twin spirals of smoke rising off the damaged vessels. But Lieutenant Talley ordered us further out in pursuit of another U-boat instead. What if there are survivors? Strobe said. I could tell he was exhausted from loading and reloading the heavy depth charges. We can't just let them drown. Our ship plunged forward, following whatever route the sonar operator said. Rumor had it there were a dozen U-boats in the Wolfpack plaguing the convoy. If we don't chase off that Wolfpack, there will be a lot more survivors who will need saving, another sailor answered. Can't do anything about them right now. I thought Strobe was going to start crying. Instead, he started cursing like I'd never heard him curse before. It's just not right, he muttered when he ran out of curse words. Nobody had time to answer him this time because we got the order to fire again. Depth charges and forward deck gun. Without being ordered to go there, I decided I needed to be up on the observation platform, even with the ocean as rough as it was, and the snow still swirling, and the ice still coating everything on board. I cautiously made my way up, just in time for the second U-boat to come into view and make an easy target for our deck gun. We fired round after round and scored hit after hit until I was sure it was going to explode and sink. But before that happened, yet another U-boat came up beside it. I saw the periscope and shouted down to the bridge. Lieutenant Talley ordered evasive action and also ordered us to fire away in the direction of the third U-boat. I wondered if he'd blundered into the middle of that whole U-boat Wolfpack, and if we would find ourselves surrounded, sitting ducks, caught in a torpedo crossfire. Lieutenant Talley must have been worrying about the same thing because, before I knew it, we were hightailing it out of there and back to join up with the convoy. The U-boats didn't try to follow us, probably too busy tending to the subs we'd hit so bad. 20 minutes later, we approached what was left of the two bleeding ships in our convoy, which wasn't much at all, but we were still hoping there were survivors. But there weren't. At least none still in lifeboats or in the water. One of the corvettes was already there when we arrived, but we could tell by the looks on the faces of the crew that there weren't anybody left to save. They were staring helplessly around them at the debris. The ships were already gone. As we pulled alongside the corvette, I realized that a lot of what looked like debris from a distance wasn't at all. It was bodies. We all just stood where we were, as if we were frozen ourselves. I had never seen anything so horrible, but I couldn't close my eyes, couldn't look away. I felt faint. I wasn't breathing. I told myself to breathe, to just keep breathing, keep breathing, keep breathing. But through that deep breath, I felt tears on my cheeks. And I was glad I was far enough above the rest of the crew that nobody could see or hear. In the distance, back where we'd chased the U-boats, more explosions ripped the horizon. One of the destroyers had turned back and was shelling the last known place the Wolfpack had been. We figured the Germans were long gone, but at least we'd managed to chase them off, away from the convoy for now. The order came for us to abandon the bodies from the sunken ships, and most of the guys on board wanted nothing more than to get moving again. Sitting still, even in the remnants of an early winter storm and in heavy waves, made us an easy target. But Lieutenant Talley told us we were going to pick up as many of the dead men as we could in the next half hour and give them a proper sea burial before we caught up with the convoy. The Royal Navy corvette captain, once he heard what we were up to, gave the same order. It was sadder than anything, paddling out in our lifeboats to pull up those poor men out on the ocean. The boats filled quickly. Transferring the bodies back to the ship took forever. The survivor nets I'd helped tie on were useless, except for us, the PC crew, to drag ourselves back on board once the half hour was up. There were still bodies left, but we couldn't risk staying any longer. The guy who'd replaced me on the observation platform was already seeing periscopes everywhere he looked, none of which turned out to be periscopes, but that was how scared and anxious and vulnerable we all were. The sea burials took a long time, too. By the end, Lieutenant Talley didn't have to read the Bible passage and the prayer. He had them both memorized and could recite them by heart. For the next week, all our days and nights were the same. The Wolfpack probed our defenses constantly, unless the weather turned too ugly, and sometimes attacked, firing their torpedoes at the vulnerable underbellies of heavy, lumbering cargo ships, and sometimes getting spotted by us first. If that happened, the chase was on, our PC hammering through the waves to catch up to a U-boat before it could get away, either by diving and sneaking off before we could lock in with our sonar, or else coming up and running away at the surface speed, which was faster than ours. They wouldn't stand and fight since our deck guns were a lot more powerful unless they were damaged, like what happened on our first voyage coming back up the East Coast. We didn't catch any, but we might have damaged a few. The same with the corvettes and the other PCs. The destroyers launched a lot of long-range shots that were sure ran off a number of U-boats, but we couldn't tell if they ever hit anything directly. Nobody slept more than an hour or two at a time. There was just so much ocean to cover, and too many ships to protect, and too many menacing U-boats, and too few of us. That's the end of chapter 21. I will see you back here again tomorrow for chapter 22, and I hope that you are enjoying the story. Make sure and leave a comment, or give us a like, or something to let me know that you're there. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.